All right, Mr. Vetter, we ready to go? The Berkshire class will start. We have Stockton Smith from Kersey, Colorado. We have Graydon Warren from Franktown, Colorado, and Piper Bullock from Littleton, Colorado, with their Berkshire Gilts. Our judge this morning is Kyle Beatty. He graduated from South Dakota State University, and with his wife Laura and 3 children, they own and operate Beatty Genetics. Both he and his wife were active 4-H and FFA members back in the day, and now they maintain an 80-head sow herd located in southeast Nebraska. Their zip code is Plymouth, Nebraska. Their operation specializes in raising purebred and crossbred show pigs, breeding stock that are marketed year-round. Additionally, they maintain an on-farm boar stud utilizing herd sires for on-farm use as well as semen sales. They conduct an annual live show pig sale in March, multiple online show pig sales throughout the year, as well as online bred female sale in November. Off the farm, Kyle stays active coaching his kids in sports and serves on the Nebraska Pork Board while previously serving on both the executive and Hampshire board for the National Swine Registry. Mr. Kyle Beatty, Beatty Genetics, is your official today.
Well, it's certainly a pleasure to be here kicking things off. We've got a trio of Berkshire Gilts, and I think quality runs, each 3 of these holds some high quality value. The one I'm going to comfortably start with is the young man farthest from me, kind of the bigger, higher performing gilt. And I do appreciate that. I guess the bigger picture items for me, that thing is really opened up and wide and square, and from the side is so correcting the angulations to her skeleton when you can combine some advantages in terms of mass and volume, not sacrifice look and design and comfortability from a feet and legs standpoint. Really a logical place to go ahead and start. You kind of got some just at opposite ends of the spectrums here on the 2 gilts that fall into second and third. And I think depending on how you want to play your cards or show your hand, you could go either way or make a case for these. The one that I guess suits me a nickel bit better is the young man here to my right with a little bit louder marked one. There's just frankly more of that one from a 3-dimensional mass standpoint. She's wider at the ground, she's bigger about her hip, she's more shapely up high. With that, she's got more curvature to her center rib, and she's still an attractive looking one. She's not quite as flexible or loose hinged out of her hip is what the young lady's gilt is here that rounds out this class in a really tough trio. Love the design that this one has to offer. She's a big-footed, big forearmed one. I think she hooks up a nickel bit more correctly right behind her shoulder blade than the gilt that winds up in second. I like the way that this one can function and push and plant off those rear 2, but at the surface where the rubber meets the road, this one's just not wide as wide made, and it carries those disadvantages. You work your way up into the upper part of her skeleton. Really nice trio to kick things off from the open breeding show.
The chesters are loaded and ready to exhibit. This is first call for the Durocs. We'll be evaluating the chesters, and the results of class 3700 in the Berkshire class was Mr. Stockton Smith was your class champion and champion Berk Gilt. Graydon Warren was second, so he was your reserve champion open Berkshire Gilt, and Piper Bullock was third in the Berkshire Gilt class. Let's give those kids a round of applause. Let's be ready to evaluate some Chester White Gilts. Class 3800, we have Piper Bullock, once again, Stockton Smith, and Kaysen Ferguson with their purebred Chester White Gilts.
Another really good trio, as we can analyze, I guess, what serves as your champion drive. A pair of these kind of surface to the top here to my left. They're just really big ribbed, ultra comfortable when they get out and go, and still good looking. Of that duo, there's one that's just a nickel bit, I think, more naturally three-dimensional, both in her bone work and her muscle pattern. That's going to be your champion. That's the young man here to my right. She's going to go ahead and be the one that kicks things off. This one at her ankle and up through her forearm and in through her forearm, I think just offers more natural width and mass and heavy dutiness of structure. Maintains a square, a comfortable traveling individual when she gets out and goes off both ends. You know, she's not quite as tight about her neck as what I think the young ladies Gilt is here that winds up as your reserve champion, but I think that kind of works hand in hand with that one just not having as much as what your champion does. Love the feet and legs and the flexibility of the Exhibitor 1262's Gilt. The length to her hip, the set to her hock, the ability to function and get out and go. Really a high quality underline on that Gilt. She gets a little bit kind of refined about her jaw, and although I do appreciate that sleek neck, she also gets a little bit sleeker about her body. Really nice pair to go 1-2. Young man that's going to go ahead and round out and be third in this particular breed is driving one that when she's standing, it's on the standstill, just on the hoof there, is one that you can kind of gravitate towards because she's very, very bulky in her muscle. She's big in her forearm. She's still stout, constructed, and her makeup. Just doesn't get out and go and track and travel, try it's true, and it's comfortably off that rear too.
Congratulations on results from our Chester White Gilt class. Was first place in Grand Champion Chester, Stockton Smith, and second place in our Reserve Champion Chester was Piper Bullock, and third was Kaysen Ferguson. Next is the Duro class of Gilts. 5 entries, and please, on the Hereford purebred Gilt, let's make your way over here as well. Okay, attention in the swine barn. Graydon Warren, we need you and your Duro Gilt, please. Graydon Warren, if you can drive your Gilt over, let's get it over to the pavilion so we can see her. Here it comes.
Got 5 head for the representing the Duro breed, and I think Champion Reserve is close, and there's some give and take. They're probably a little bit different in their type and kind, but I think the two kind of to my left, farther away from me, are the ones that surface in my mind, just from the pure pieces and things that they have to offer. The one that I'm going to go ahead and use, I just think is a better combination and better balanced package of a female. She's stouter and I think more genuine in terms of the muscle and the three-dimensional substance that she's got. That's the young lady here in glasses to my right. She's going to go ahead and be your champion Duro. That one, upon close inspection up high, is bolder about her blade. She's really wide and square about the edge to her loin. I like that one's natural hip shape a great deal. Height to length ratio, and that one just balances up a skosh better than the Gilt that's going to go ahead and be reserved. I like that one shape to her head and the way that the curvature to her jaw and the slope she's got to her shoulder, just a nickel bit better than what the reserve ends up being. And again, ultimately, I think that one's just a notch more genuine in the amount of bone she's got in proportions, and it just helps her balance up. The young lady in red that's going to go ahead and be reserved just hits me in some pieces that I really get drawn to and are probably my speed, just in terms of the length to her hip, the way that she can move and flex out of her hock. My issues or my concerns or off-putting things to me is the shape to her skull. She gets a little bit almost kind of Roman nosed about her forehead. And bigger thing, although I like the width of her chest and the squareness she's got to the ground, she's not quite as shapely up high. As I step back and kind of look off that one, I wish she was just taller to better balance up. I mean, she's probably a rib longer body than she is tall and throws her balance out of whack. 2 Gilts that I think are very good and have some positive things. Just wanted to tweak that one in an area too in order to flip-flop that pair. From there, I think you've got some that get a little bit more vertical in their skeleton, and you kind of got some give and take and how you want to analyze or jumble up this trio. I think you can kind of go back and forth on. The one that I'm going to go ahead and use is the young lady in purple is going to go ahead and be third. That's a bigger statured one that I wish was just a notch heavier constructed for her size and to help her balance up a nickel bit better. I like the length she's got to her front end. I like the levelness that she has on her top line. Ultimately, I just wanted to see that one stouter and more durable in order to move her any higher in this class. The pair of kind of lighter weight Gilts that go ahead and wind up in 4th and 5th are really shapely and attractive up front. I like the young man here to my left here, kind of closer to me now, to go ahead and be 4th. Young man there would be 5th. I just see this one a notch more genuine in its form, a little bit bigger footed. Still, I think the short bodied one that doesn't sacrifice length the front end. The young man that's going to go ahead and round out this class gets a little more upright in its shoulder blade, a little bit shorter out of her hip, and with that has a tendency kind of want to question or concerns me a tick on how she wants to function off her hip and hind leg in order to move her any higher in the.
Okay, results from class 3900, our Duroc registered Gilt class. Our champion was Kimberly Gray with Homegirl. Our reserve was Lexi Quick C and C Show Pigs with Sleepy. Third was Peyton Peyton Swires with Reba, also known as Vine for Melon. Anyway, Reba. And then in 4th place was Parker Dressel with his Ultra Duroc Gilt, and in 5th was Graydon Warren with Duroc Gilt. Now, in the ring is our single entry Hereford Gilt.
Logically, your champion breed representative from this drive, the young lady's Hereford Gilt, just to kind of give you a few cliff notes on this one. Ties in really deep in through her heart and is very uniform from forward and back. I think the angulation for that one, shoulder and knee and pasturing strength is very, very good. I like her ability to kind of flex her hock when she gets out and goes. You know, she's not as wide as anything that we've seen today, but I still think a very nice representative from a Hereford Gilt standpoint.
Results from the Hereford Gilt class is Walter McCormick is your champion Hereford Gilt. We'll see that Gilt later on this morning. We've got our open spot class that's next. We need London Dean, Peyton Swires, Walter McCormick. Walter's driving Bubbles. Peyton is showing Tina. Forgive me if I don't, these more specific registered names are a little hard to read sometimes. And then we have London Dean with Dolly, and his registration is pending, but she made it past the type judge, so I guess we're okay. And the spot class is complete. So we'll
Very fun spot breed to kind of analyze here as this trio kind of crosses the surface. All three of these are certainly packed full of tons of product and volume, and I don't think any one of this trio does anything overly concerning, and that's what ultimately makes this very close, because honestly, where there's one or there's an area where I'd like to tweak or just critique one or fix it, that's where a counterpart is probably really good there, and vice versa, which makes it kind of a fun class to kind of go ahead and pick apart. Of the trio that's out here, there's a pair of them that I think just quality-wise just surface up to the top just a nickel bit better than what the third is. And of that duo, they're different in their type and kind here in front of me. And there's one that I think is just a nickel bit more unique in her ability to combine this kind of mass and substance and still stay so square and true. The young lady here with the blue and white is going to go ahead and win this particular breed. Congratulations to her. That thing, just in terms of width of chest, is ultra wide and opened up and good. When she drives away, stays so square that her hock stays underneath her stifle. And so she's, inch for inch, maybe not as wide, but I think balance-wise and aesthetically, she puts it all together so just a shot more effortlessly than what the reserve champion does in this particular breed. And that image right there, I think, just kind of cascades her to the top ever so quickly because she's tall-shouldered and still opened up. That's a hard combination. Really good underlying gilt. She's level. Man, I wish she was bigger footed and heavier bone, and that's what keeps this pair close, because that's where 1340 is going to go end up, and as your reserve has those class advantages in the pair. She's her bigger footed hog. She's bigger about her cannon bone. She's big forearm. I love that one's shape and expression. As the drive wears on, she gets you can see that her being a nickel bit shorter coupled causes her to be just a nickel bit quicker striding off of both ends of her skeleton. And although I appreciate the mass and substance she's got, just wanted to see her track as free and as easily as what your champion does. The young lady in purple that's going to go ahead and wind up with third in this particular drive, that's another three-dimensional one that's big rib, big up high, tons of mass and thickness. Again, that's where her advantages kind of work to her disadvantage, because as the drive wears on, she's the one that probably was the quickest to struggle and kind of question where she wants to land on those rear two. Gets a nickel bit softer up front and a little bit crestier about her neck, but certainly one that has some things that you can really work with from a mass and substance standpoint. Really nice trio of spotted females.
Results from class 4400, the open spot gilt class. In first place was London Dean driving Dolly. She was your champion spot. In second place was Walter McCormick with Hanson Show Pigs driving Bubbles. And in third was Peyton Swires driving a Chelsea Vineyard Gilt, and her name was Tina. Next in the ring will be our open Yorkshire Gilt single entry, Stockton Smith from Kersey, Colorado.
Very, very nice champion Yorkshire Gilt that the young man's driving here. She's very attractive and still stout. She's extended necked and still has a really dense mug about her that's not unattractive. I like that one shape up high. She's got a big groove, length of hip, allows her to take a very comfortable stride. The way that she can flex and plant that hock, I think is very, very good. I like that one silhouette that she kind of gives you from the side. She's level, correct in her angles, and doesn't disappoint you from a muscle standpoint, which I think Yorkshires sometimes can struggle with. Is you'll like them from the side, but you come in for close inspection and they just don't have enough junk in the trunk, and that's where I think that one is very, very good there. Really nice Yorkshire Gilt, and be anxious to see what she looks like against the others when we crown the overall champion. Put your hands together for that young man. He'll make his way out.
All right, Stockton Smith driving for CCDL, and that is the purebred York Gilt. That'll be your champion York as well. We'll see her later this morning. Now for our first class of open light crossbreds.
Make a call for Walker.
Okay. All right, Walker McCormick, if you can make. Oh. Okay. Oh. In the swine barn, we need Walker McCormick, please, for the open light cross first class of open light crossbred gilts. Walker McCormick with. Thank you. Yes.
dive into the crosses, starting with these 4 light cross gilts. And I think there's a trio of them, again, that all have some positive characteristics that a guy can really build on and work with. And of this trio, there's one that's probably just a shot more my speed, and it comes from a skeleton standpoint. The angulation she's got to her hip and her hind leg allow her to just drive and push and plant and go exceptionally comfortably. The young lady here in black, exhibitor 1001, is going to go ahead and be your champion light cross. That one, to me, it's getting a little bit past 12 o'clock. I mean, showing her age and maturity a little bit. She gets a little bit crestier about her head, and a little bit easier about her top line. And I think that the top line issue is certainly a debatable one. I guess I lean on the fact that comes from a flexibility standpoint. Is it the ideal backdrop image that we all kind of want to convey? Absolutely not. But that one's ability to drive and push and plant off its hip and hind leg, I think from a breeding standpoint, when I did kind of decipher where I want to mate that one, you've got way more options to kind of go ahead and get that one and make the next generation better, because that's where second and third both have an issue in that regard, and you just kind of got to cover your bases a nickel bit better in order to kind of get them moving forward to the next direction, or making the next stage a nickel bit better. And with that advantages in hip and hind leg, she doesn't disappoint me just in terms of width and mash. She's just getting a little bit maybe out of bounds in terms of age. The top line on your reserve champion here at 1339 is definitely better. That one's shape and spread and bone work, I think, is incredible, and that's where I wish I could have combined those two. I like her proportions and her balance probably equally as well as any of these out here. My faults kind of come to her hip and hind leg of the top trio. She's the one that gets the most out of bounds and has to work the widest and the hardest to go in a forward motion. But I think when you start putting parts and pieces of the puzzle together, that's the one that's the kind of the outlier in terms of foot and bone and skull and shape, in order to kind of again make the next generation and just maybe a little bit more progressive. The pair of kind of blue blanketed ones up here, I think you got to logically use the young lady in black. That's a bigger statured one that's taller at the point of her shoulder. She gets a little bit restricted off her rear too, a little bit tighter about her hock. I do appreciate her passer strength. She's not as round bodied and just big and as massive as what I thought your champion and reserve were. If I could just get her a little bit rounder and more curved, and maybe just tighten her up in through her neck, I think you can make a case to maybe move that one up a shot. But still, I think offer some positive things. The young lady in pink's driving one that I think has an attractive head on her. I like that one's shape. She's probably a nickel bit fresher than the gilt that's right above her. She's really square out of her hip. She gets a little bit harsher in her center rib, a little bit drier about her rib cage and her flank, a little bit shorter striding, more vertical in her skeleton. Doesn't allow her to give you that killer silhouette from the profile in order to move up, but very, very nice gilt to round out your light crosses.
All right, results from our light crossbred gilt class. Our champion is Madeline Joseph, driving for CC Diamond Livestock. Our reserve champion is Walker McCormick, driving for JD Show Pigs. Third went to Ellery Rocky, and that is her gilt. She's from Monte Vista. And in fourth place was Miss Brooklyn Griggs from Rangeley, Colorado. She was driving for Rick Murr. Next up, we have 7 entries in the first dark crossbred gilt class with Graydon, Bradley, Stockton, William, Aubrey, Keaton, and Keaton with 2 in this class. Graydon's working for Blake Danner. Bradley is working for CNC Show Pigs. Stockton, CCDL. William is helping Alley Genetics. Aubrey, Mollet Genetics. And Keaton is driving 2 gilts for Tri Genetics this morning. Keaton is from Texoma, Oklahoma. And once again, showbarnflix.com made it to work again this morning. And they are broadcasting live on the World Wide Web, showbarnflix.com. And Beverly even made it in to take some photographs for us. How about that? For the 13th day in a row.
Start the lightweight dark crosses here, and you got some give and take. I think you got a lot of variety and variation and types and kinds in here. Honestly, with that being said, there's one that I think just fits the bill for me and does so quite handedly. Exhibitor 1013, the young lady in pink, is going to go ahead and win this particular class, and honestly, it was hers to lose. I kind of let them drive out here. Just wanted to make sure that she wouldn't break down as you kind of looking forward to your champion drive from this breed. That one's angles read extremely true. That one's skull is dense and stout. She's shaggy, which it's probably a debatable topic on how important or how much you prioritize hair. It sounds crazy to me. When I was growing up, we shaved it all off, and now we're trying to select to grow for it. But that one's proportions and balance and build and bulk all fits. She's got to win and does so quite handedly. Congratulations to her. After these 6, I think you can make a case to kind of go about 4 or 5 different ways, and the one that to me I keep coming back to, I think not only represents what I like to see from a quality standpoint, but probably matches our class winner as easily as any. Young man right here, 1265, is driving that Gilt that's going to go ahead and wind up in 2. She's big forearm. She's probably more feminine about her throat and her jawline than what our class winner is. She's really big about her hip. She's not as big up high just in terms of the roundness to her rib cage. She's proportions wise probably gets a nickel bit longer than what our class winner is, but that's the one that I think from a breeding scenario standpoint has the most good and is the logical next option. I thought she was a nickel bit squarer the way she wanted to track off of her rear 2 than what the young man's Gilt is that winds up in 3. That's the predominantly black one here that the young gentleman in plaid is driving. This socked Gilt I think has the proportions of what our class winner does, but maybe just a notch more bulk in terms of center body, big back, big hip. She gets a little bit refined about her features down low. She's a little bit smaller footed than what first and second are. My bigger discredit or concern is where she wants to plant that right rear hock. She wants to flex that out ever so slightly, and I couldn't just logically get her up any higher than that. But I think from a building standpoint, that one's got some blocks that you can really kind of tee off on and move things forward. From there, you got some give and take in 4th and 5th, and I go back and forth between a pair of these Gilts. The one I'm going to go ahead and use initially is the one that's going to stay in 4th. The young man right here in front of me with closer to the vetter is going to go ahead and be 4th. Skin and hair and presentation on that one I think is incredible. Angulation, so that one's length of her hip, the set to her hock. She's a nickel bit heavier constructed, I think, particularly out of her skull than what the Gilt is that winds up in 4th. The shoulder that she's got, I think, is made right. She almost has too much curvature to her knee and wants to get a nickel bit softer. She's maybe not as radical in her muscle tone as what those Gilts were that played right above her. I guess I'm okay or willing to live with that because judging her and analyzing her as a female, I'm going to go ahead and get the shape from the boar for that one moving forward. Still think that she logically needs to be 4. Young man with the predominantly white one is going to go ahead and be next. She does offer more shape up high than what the Gilt is that precedes her. She's got a bigger groove, a square edge to her loin. She's got a bigger dimple over her head. Her tail head, she's really wide out of her upper hip and square, and I do appreciate how she functions out of her rear leg with those advantages just in terms of girth and muscle substance. Man, I wish I could change that one's head. She gets too kind of snake-headed or anteater face for me. I want to just give her more jaw or cheek and make her wider between the eyes and just shorten up her face a nickel bit. That maybe being critical to some, but that's kind of how I read her. I just wanted to tweak that thing first impression-wise. She just didn't hit me quite as hard as a couple of these other ones. You got the pair that rounds out here in 6 and 7, just in difference. One's just a nickel bit too small. One's a little bit bigger statured, and that's the one I'm going to go ahead and use. The young man's chromed up one that's going to go ahead and be 6. She's bigger made. She's more extended, I think, off either end of her skeleton. She isn't as big-bodied and three-dimensional as what I'd like to see. Again, just looking forward logically, you're going to go ahead and try and get that from the boar side of things. Exhibitor 1279 is driving a Gilt that I think, again, offers some pieces that I like in terms of a stoutness of jaw. She gets a little bit, again, kind of Roman about her face up front. It gets a little bit softer and weaker on her pasterns. I like that one shaped compositionally. I think that one reads to me like a true female. She gets a little bit kind of out of bounds, and I wish she was a little bit bigger made in order to move her any higher.
All right, results from our dark crossbred gilt class, weighing anywhere from 200 to 235 pounds. First place, Aubrey Naranjo from Monte Vista, Colorado, was your champion, and second was Blake Danner, Graydon Warren, and he's driving a gilt from Blake Danner. Third place was William McCormick with a gilt from Alley Genetics. Fourth place was Stockton Smith. His gilt was from CCDL Breeder. In fifth place was Bradley Hermes from C&C Show Pigs. In sixth place, Keaton Ferguson from Texoma, Oklahoma. And in seventh place was Keaton Ferguson again, Trigenetics from Texoma, Oklahoma. In the ring now is our second class of dark crossbred gilts. The weight range is 240 to 251. Should have 5 entries. Attention in the barn. If we can get class 4702. Our dark
Two very nice gilt surface to the top here in this drive, and I'm going to go ahead and use the one that's just so stout and dense to win this class. Young lady with glasses is driving kind of the off-belted one. I'm going to go ahead and use this one, starting from the root of her nose and through the width that she's got to her skull and her jaw. Just offers so much more substance of bone. She's bigger forearm, she's bigger footed, she's stouter skulled. Muscle up high, I think, is on point, and the way that she can kind of drive away from you and keep that rear leg in check is probably where she betters the gilt that winds up in 2. Is she as genuinely wide as this young man's gilt right here that's going to go ahead and be second? No, she's not. She doesn't as much at the surface as what this young man's is, and I'll be the first to admit that. That one too is big up high, big centered, big hip. She's as far out there and as wide on the corners as kind of what I would like to see her. Surprisingly is how much muscle and mass and stoutness that she's got. Man, I wish that thing had more pipe. She's a little bit, again, more refined about her jaw, and she's not as big about her foot. And at times, it's a good thing she goes slow, because I think she'd get real wonky and have to go east and west to move in a north and south motion. But two very, very nice gilts to go ahead and start this particular drive. From there, you kind of got to pick your poison, I guess. You got a pair of nickel bit more moderate ones and one that's a nickel bit bigger. The one I think that just offers a shot more quality is the young lady in purple. She's going to go ahead and be third. She's a big backed one that's really, really big hip. She gets a little bit more rolled forward in her shoulder, and I do appreciate how stout she is. I just like to lengthen that one out ever so slightly if I could. She's got a little bit kind of inflammation there back in her lymph nodes. We've had gilts at home do that. I guess that doesn't concern me from a breeding side of things. They ultimately seem to milk about the same high counting quality underline. 3-dimensional one just needed a shot more extension. On the flip side, you've got the bigger extended one that's going to go ahead and go fourth. She's really long about her front. She's really level about her top line. I think she's square about her hip. She gets too short striding and restricted off both ends of her skeleton, I think, because she's too vertical in her makeup. Some could say that she's tall shouldered. Well, if you analyze the angle to her shoulder and her knee, and although she's still a strong pastern, she gets flatter in her rib cage and just ultimately kind of straight and 90 degrees in those lines. I think that's why she is ultimately a little bit quicker striding off both ends. I'd like to beef and bulk that one up. If I can combine these two from a mass substance, the young man's Gilt that rounds out this class in 5th is the meat and potatoes one of the drive. That's as big of a back and as big of a hip, and it has a very, very big hind leg as any in this drive. Ultimately, she's also the most compact. She's the shortest about her front, the most moderate in her frame and length of body, and the quickest about her hip. And with that, gets a little bit kind of wonky how she wants to track off those rear two, and probably the most physically concerning, I guess, from a function standpoint. And that's why she kind of rounds out this drive.
Results from Class 4701, our dark crossbred gilts weighing anywhere from 240 to 251. First place was Miss Kimberly Gray from Hayden, Colorado. The breeder was Trace Amigos. In second place was Warren Graydon, and he was showing a gilt from Blake Danner. In third place was Peyton Swires from Wellington, Colorado. Fourth place, Pratt Reed from Pueblo, Colorado, driving for Goss Livestock. And in fifth place was Keaton Ferguson from driving for Tri Genetics. Next up, Class 4702, our crossbred gilts weighing from 260 to 272. We have 7 entries in this class. 2, 4. Looks like class is complete.
Another class that offers some variation in types and kinds, and where you may favor and fancy one, you kind of like to tweak the other one, and typically, you know, that's honestly what makes it very, very close in my mind, and a nickel bit of a challenge, I guess. The non-challenging thing is using your class winner. That's the young lady here to my left with glasses. It wins this class, and again, does so quite handedly. It's hers to lose. You analyze that one from a build standpoint and a bone standpoint. Everything fits and matches extremely good. Kind of a unique one to have that kind of quality of an underline and still be that stout and rugged and still feminine and attractive. Exhibitor 1247 is going to go ahead and win this class. From there, the most comfortable thing to me is go ahead and use the young lady here in front of me. Is going to go ahead and be 2. That one just fits the makeup of being stout and rugged and opened up. She's got a big form. She's wide. She's got some rib shape and doesn't sacrifice look. She's still square, tracks and travels easily enough for me to go ahead and not think twice about having her in 2. I thought from a class standpoint is easily the next best option in my mind, and you can't get any farther after that one that goes ahead and wins. From there, you lose some pounds or some mass or some substance or some body. I still think you got to use the young lady in red for 3rd. The front 2/3 of that one I think are very, very good. She's tall-shouldered and still good about the slope to her shoulder, the strength to her knee and passer, and she gets a little bit kind of plainer in terms of her muscle and her shape. Again, I'm willing to be comfortable with that just because it is a Gilt standpoint. In order to flip-flop 2 and 3, you got to see that one take a longer stride off those rear 2. I still think she's flexible enough to go ahead and comfortably land in the 3rd hole, just in order to be that kind of, I guess, plain in terms of her shape. Wanted to see her be longer and more poetic in terms of reach and range of motion in order to move any higher. Young lady in pink is going to go ahead and be 4th. Another stout made one that's got some muscle and 3-dimensional characteristics you really got to like. There's still an attractive headed one that's stout and extended. Gets a little bit kind of drier about her rib cage and a little bit more up about her flank. A little bit rounder and kind of shorter about her hip and straighter about her hock. Maybe just a notch more terminal as opposed to maternal in her features in order to move her up a shot or 2, but I still think just in terms of being opened up and 3-dimensional, that one had the next most pieces to kind of go ahead and work with. Young man in plaid's going to go ahead and be next. Another bulky made one that I probably fancy up high better than I do down low. She's not as wide a chested as what you would probably perceive her as you look how bold she is about her blade, how big she is about her hip, and wide she is about her back. I like that one soft center body, probably a nickel bit better. I don't like that one with the chest as much as the one that goes right in front of her, nor do I like that one's stoutness and heaviness of bone as much as the one that precedes her. Young lady here on my right with the predominantly black one is going to go ahead and be 6th. The young lady here on my left is going to go ahead and be 7. I think from a feet and legs standpoint, this one just suits me a nickel bit better. She takes a longer, looser, more comfortable stride. The angulations, both front and rear, probably mimic what I kind of like to see in our females, just a nickel bit better. She can flex that hock, drives with a longer stride than what the young lady's Gilt here does in front of me. I like the compositional correctness in terms of shape. Just like to see this one probably bigger bodied, a little bit wider about her hock, a little bit bigger about her foot.
Congratulations to our Crossbreed Gilt exhibitors in class 4702. Those Gilts weighed anywhere from 260 to 272. Our class winner was Kimberly Gray. In 2nd place was Kinley Shrevogel. 3rd place was Lexi Quick with Bashful. Sorry, I'll get these Gilt names out. 4th place, Natalie Sprouse with Grandma Gilmore. I thought that was a pretty cute name there. In 5th place, we had William McCormick driving Brittany. And in 6th place, Walker McCormick driving Belle. In 7th was Addison Frunk driving Shanini. So up next is our dark crossbred Gilts weighing 282 to 303. There's 7 entries in this class.
getting into a little bit more of the meat and potatoes, I think easily as deep of a class as we've seen today, and there's 4 of them that I think are really fun to kind of to pick on and kind of tweak and just roll in my mind what I'd want to do or change or what I'd want to breed them to. Of the 4, there's one that I think is very, very universal from a build and width and mass standpoint. It has an absolutely massive back and doesn't sacrifice feet and legs to do so. Young Man in Green is going to go ahead and have your class winner in this particular drive. The angulations to that one's skeleton. She's got a big rear leg that can still flex and go. She's ultra maternal in her rib and her depth to her body and doesn't sacrifice look to do that. She doesn't get cresty about her neck like that one's with the skeleton. Really nice maternal gilt to go ahead and start this class. From there, again, you got to still have a trio of them that I think are all still high quality. I like the Young Man's black-legged one right here to go ahead and be second. From a reaching standpoint, I think that one probably is just a nickel bit more out there than options 3 and 4 in this particular drive. She's as wide on the corners and wants to just ever so slightly want to roll that right rear hock. I guess the reason I'm comfortable kind of overlooking that is her reach and range of motion from the side and the angulations to her skeleton are still better than a couple of the options below you, because where one is probably a nickel bit squarer about her hock, she doesn't reach and just grab the ground as well as that one. She's, again, getting a little bit past 12 o'clock as you analyze the crest to her neck, but man, that thing has so much mass and thickness and bone and still is comfortable when she gets out and goes. Got to go ahead and wind up and use her in 2. The young lady in pink is going to go ahead and be third in this particular drive, and this is the one that when she first came out, I think she was the second or the third one in here. It's like, okay, here we go. With the chest, first impression, attractive head and big square back. Really do like those things about her as we kind of work our way back into the rear portions of that one skeleton. Of my initial 3 and even talking the top 4, she's the driest and the harshest over her rib cage. This is the one that she's got a big rear leg, and I think she stays within herself a nickel bit better than the gilt that winds up in second, but she doesn't reach and just get out and go with as much range of motion as what 2 is. That's where I was comfortable sifting her into third. Young lady in red, farthest from me, is going to go ahead and be fourth. Another awesome pattern one that's really good in her angles. First impressions killer. She's got that thing dialed in. Heads up, shoulder assembly, and front end extension is just so on point. She's really big and maternal in her rib cage and body cavity. Like that one a great deal. Shortcomings for her is when I stepped in beside her. This is the one that of my initial 4 is the most concerning. She gets the shortest about her hip, the most out there about her hock, and she's all gets 2 strikes because she's too wide and she's too wants to flex those rear legs in kind of in the wrong direction. From there, you have a trio remaining. I'm going to go ahead and use the young lady in blue here closest to me. That's a tall statured one that's really durable and stout stout forearm. I think the width between her eyes is good, gets a little bit plainer about her shape. She gets too flat, I think, in her rib cage. The young lady in black is going to go ahead and be 6. Young lady in red is going to go ahead and be 7. Gilts, I think, certainly have some advantages. The young lady in black just softer and more correct, I think, from a feet and legs standpoint. Young lady in red's gilt gets a little bit shorter and more constricted off both ends of her skeleton.
Congratulations to those exhibitors. Our first place, we had Bradley Hermes from Fort Morgan, Colorado, driving a gilt from C&C Show Pigs. Second place was Hardy Tigner from Akron, Colorado. He was showing a gilt from Basler Show Pigs. In third place was Briley Matterford from Pueblo, Colorado. Basler Show Pigs once again. And in fourth place was Ellery Rocky from Monta Vista, showing for Hinton Livestock. Nope, pardon me. I messed that up. Fourth was Lexi Quick from Berthoud, Colorado, C&C Show Pigs. Fifth was Walker McCormick from the May family. In sixth was Ellery Rocky from Monta Vista. for Hinton Livestock, and in 7th was Cassidy Sanford, Rangeley, Colorado, for Basler Show Pigs. In the ring now is our heavier weight dark crossbred gilts. They weigh from 317 to 355. This is our final class of dark crossbreds, and we'll roll into our champion drive for dark crossbred gilts. We need to have all first and second class winners from the dark crossbred gilt division to make their way back to the livestock pavilion, please. First call. All first and second places from the dark crossbred gilt division, please make your way back to the livestock pavilion.
Strong effort to round out the dark crosses. Again, not a bad or sorry one in the bunch. These 7 out here, I think presentation is exceptionally good, and I think quality certainly runs deep in rounding out these dark crosses. The one I keep coming back to, 1387, is going to win this class. Young lady in purple there in the centers, just driving the kind of the unique or outlier one as you analyze these 7. That's a short-bodied one that is monster about her back and still maternal in their rib cage and uniform from in her depth. That one's ahead is so attractive, and when you step in behind her, that's a big rear leg, and she is out there on the corners but doesn't flex that leg out at all. She's just honestly that wide, which I think is a very unique thing to kind of do to kind of proportion and balance up from a height to length ratio as probably as good as easily as any of these, and doesn't throw feet and legs to the wayside. For your second in this particular drive, there's a couple different options. I think you can land on the one that comfortably, I guess, I keep coming back to and can keep it short and sweet. The young lady in black, exhibitor 1014, is going to go ahead and be 2 in this particular drive. From a feet and legs standpoint, that one's reach and range of motion I think is absolutely incredible to be a gilt of this size. The angulations that she has, the length to her hip, allows her to take a long, comfortable, loose stride off her rear too when she gets out and goes, and she too is packing an incredible, powerful punch just in terms of mass and thickness. She's not as unique in terms of her proportions as what our class winner was. But I think from a build standpoint, as we start reaching these heavier weights, I think issues from a feet and leg standpoint can certainly surface to the top, and that's where that one, you really can't falter there in my mind. The Gilt at 10-10 is going to go ahead and be third. Front 2/3 of this one I think are absolutely killer. When she came in, I was just like, man, please be just okay in the rear portion of your skeleton. And honestly, I had a couple options I thought were just better there, and kind of just didn't disappoint me as much as what I wish this this one wouldn't have done. She's too short out of her hip. She's too quick out of her stride and her range of motion. She's tall-shouldered. She's awesome in through that front-end assembly and very unique and attractive. But, man, feet and legs, the way that they go off their rear, too, is certainly a criteria that we kind of focus on, and that's what that one's biggest hole was probably my number one sorting criteria. So if you had her a notch higher on your markings, I can certainly understand that, I guess, because where that one's good, she's extremely unique. Just probably didn't check the box that I probably prioritize the most of anything. The 4 remaining gilts that are out here, again, I think all from a quality standpoint, all offer some very good things. I like the young man here closest to me, kind of the shorter body one, to go ahead and be next. That thing is ultra bulky and three-dimensional. That thing is massive and still attractive. She, too, has the same shortcomings is the gilt that placed right above her, just in terms of length of hip. She gets too short coupled, wants to get a little bit too out there. She gets a little bit more boxy, or pushes the boxy envelope, I guess, a nickel bit too hard for my liking. Just want to rock that shoulder blade back and just maybe elongate her pattern ever so slightly in order to move her up a spot. The young lady here by pen 6 is going to go ahead and be next. That one, too, you got to appreciate from a long pattern standpoint. She's big out of her upper hip. She just doesn't plant quite as true as what I'd like to see going away for how big and massive she is up high. She has a tendency to kind of want to roll off that right rear in particular. Like that one silhouette, just wanted to change her front and coming and going. Young lady in pink is going to go ahead and be next. Another one that has some positive characteristics. I love that one's head when she's driving that one. So stout and still feminine, still extended, very, very level and comfortable. Just honestly not as many bells and whistles to work with as a couple of these other ones that are out here. Very, very good high quality gilt that's ran into a buzzsaw of a class. Same can be said for the young lady in blue that rounds out this particular drive. I like that one's added frame. She's still good built to be a bigger one. I think that she has the ability to kind of have some angle to her hock, and I think patterns in that one are really good. She's level, just gets out-pounded in terms of mass and thickness, honestly, in order to compete any higher in this class. Very nice gilt to round out the dark cross drive.
Results from our heavyweight crossbred gilt class 407. First place was Kaisley Sanford from Rangeley, Colorado. That gilt came from Basler Show Pigs. In second place was Ella Koch from Akron, Colorado, again from Basler Show Pigs. That gilt was Sally. In third place, Jake King from Cope, Colorado, was driving a gilt for Kanath. And in fourth place, Luke Fisher from Pueblo, Prodigy Livestock. Fifth place, Riley Joseph, C&C Show Pigs from Berthoud, Colorado. In sixth place, Maddie Fuller from Pueblo, Colorado, driving for Gilmore Show Pigs. And in seventh was Katie Hesslink from Pueblo, Colorado, driving a gilt raised by Johnny Hamilton. Now we have our champion drive. There should be 5 champions. We should have Kaisley Sanford, Bradley Hermes, Kimberly Gray again, and Aubrey Narahano. This is the champion drive for dark crossbred gilts. Attention in the pavilion and the swine barn. We will do the overall grand gilt drive at 10:30. 10:30 this morning will be the grand overall gilt drive.
very nice assortment of dark cross class winners. The 5 that are out here, I think, all bring some things to the table that you can really latch onto and run with. I guess for me, when you kind of roll through your mind, or when you leave the house, obviously the first goal is to always kind of win your class in order to have a shot to be a champion. And then it's just a matter of personal preference, and you're kind of out of your control of what you run into. From a priority standpoint, all these I think fit the bill for what we kind of like. Of these 5, there's one that I just think is just radical and different and kind of an outlier. You know, I'm all for covering the basics and balances and proportions and whatnot, but when it nuts and bolts of it, when it comes down to winning shows and making differences, you got to be different. The young lady in purple's driving the different one. She's your champion dark cross.
Congratulations to Miss Kaisley Sanford from Rangeley, Colorado. The breeder was Basler Show Pigs, and Kaisley was driving Delta. She is your champion, dark crossbred gilt. She came from class 4704.
For your reserve champion honors, I guess it comes down to a trio of me that happens to be the 2 to my left and the 1 to my right. Here now the 3 directly to my left and kind of centered. I think all 3 of those gilts, you know, from a skin and hair and presentation standpoint, are on point. Obviously, from a skills standpoint, certainly are getting driven by people that know what they're doing, and certainly works to their advantages, I guess. And I don't want to take anything away from those other 2 young people, because I think they're doing a fine, high-quality job as well. There's just some minor differences in terms of what they bring to the table as a pig standpoint for a female that we kind of gravitate towards and like, and truthfully, all 3 of these I'd be happy to have and say were mine, or have a part of them, because I think from a build and feet and legs and look, and they do so many things exceptionally good. In my mind, for ones that are different or get big banners, you got to be memorable. And of that trio, there's probably still a duo of them that I think are ultimately very, very, very good from a build and just combining some very, very hard to put pieces together. Of that duo, there's one that's just offers more. She's just farther along from a maturity standpoint, where I like one. The other one is just better. She's got more bone, she's got more wit, she's got more look, and she's still very, very comfortable. Young lady in front of me's got your reserve champion.
And congratulations to Kimberly Gray from class 4702. She was driving Tammy, and Kimberly Gray is from Hayden, Colorado, and the breeder was, I guess, Deterting. I think that's a misprint, but Kimberly Gray, congratulations anyway, from class 4702, the dark crossbred gilt class. From 260 to 272, she is your reserve champion, dark crossbred gilt. We will have the overall gilt grand drive at 10:30. The overall gilt grand drive at 10:30. Been instructed to make the last call for all Gilt breed champions. Please make your way to the Livestock Pavilion. Okay. All division champions, please make your way to the Livestock Pavilion. We need Stockton Smith from the Berkshire breed. We need Stockton Smith again on the Chester Whites. Kimberly Gray from the Duro class. Walker McCormick from the Hereford class. London Dean on the spots. We need Stockton Smith for the Yorkshires. The open white crossbred gilt. We need Madeline Joseph. And our dark crossbred champion, we need Kaisley Sanford from Rainsville. Appears that our division breed winners are loaded. We ready to go, Steve? All right. Again, our judge is Mr. Kyle Beatty from Plymouth, Nebraska. Whoop, waiting on one. A couple of our exhibitors have driven both champions and reserves in a couple of different divisions, so they're having to get some friends to help exhibit their multiple champion entries. So if you can be patient with us, we'll get the grand drive rolling as soon as we get organized. Mr. Vetter says we're ready. Mr. Beatty is anxious, and we'll start our Gilt Grand Drive. The 2024 Colorado State Fair Open Gilt Show, Breeding Gilt Show.
If I could get you to put your hands together for these exhibitors with their breed champions. again, logically not a show that was large in numbers, but man, it sure takes a good one to get to this stage. The only other round of applause I will ask for before I kind of divulge into kind of my selection criteria is put your hands together for the staff and the crew, if you would, that puts this event on. I know that they would appreciate it. And I know as a producer, I certainly appreciate every opportunity we have to kind of to portray what our hard work and sweat does, and certainly the kids with all the time and effort. Every opportunity you have, you certainly want to take that chance. You know, it seems like not long ago, but when we had, and not to beat a dead horse, but man, when COVID hit, we sure learned to appreciate the opportunities, I guess, because they didn't just come without sweat and a little bit of elbow grease. And with that being said, you know, I think we quickly forget how fortunate we are, I guess, until something kind of puts a wall in front of us. Now that the negative things are out of the way, let's talk about the positive things. Man, these kids have been great today. These hogs, I think, are exceptional. The staff's been great, the hospitality, and getting in here, traffic, weather, everything. I mean, it's the years that it's hot and sweaty and it's bumper to bumper traffic. Just remember this year and just smile a nickel bit. From a champion and selection criteria, I've maybe kind of expressed or shown, I mean, basic in their build and correct and functional and balance and proportions is all everything that we kind of strive for at our place. But ultimately, you know, you got to be memorable. You got to be different. In order to win shows, you got to move the needle. And with that being said, you know, I'm not going to get on any soapbox, but there's one out here that you know, is ultimately just so different. The proportions, the balance, this one's height to length ratio, how far and extreme this one is, I think are just incredibly hard to do. I haven't seen a perfect one. All of these breed champions, there's an area or two where I'd like to tweak them. Even record sellers come with some things that you'd like to tweak. And of these out here, there's one that I think, man, if you can't make progress and change a thing or two, you probably need to reevaluate which boar you use. But with that being said, the outlier to me that's going to be your champion, the young lady in purple with the dark cross.
Congratulations go to Kaisley Sanford from Rangeley, Colorado. She was our Dark Cross champion. She was driving Delta. That is your overall open breed Gilt Show champion for the 2024 Colorado State Fair. And her second place, Ella Koch, will take her place in the reserve drive at this time.
Again, I'll keep it short and sweet. There's 3 or 4 of these out here that I think from a balance and functionality standpoint all suit me extremely well. I'm going to commend the young lady that just switched, because now I get to shake the hand of your reserve champion. Keep the dark crosses together.
All right, and congratulations to Ella Koch from Kimberly Gray.
Moving forward, we dive into your third overall, and of these that are out here, there's again 4 of them that I still think you can make a case for. Of the 4, just so aesthetically pleasing from the side. The build, the comfortability comes with extras in terms of bone. Maybe not as much wow factor as your Grand and your Reserve, but still I think logically the next best one that's the most memorable in my mind is a breed that we don't personally have at home, but the young man exhibitor 1047 with the Berkshire is going to have your third overall. For your fourth overall, just kind of, again, moving forward, there's probably a pair of them that surface that just come with some extras in terms of mass and thickness and width of that duo. There's one that just hits you with more substance and bone and foot and forearm and doesn't sacrifice look. Again, another breed that we don't have at our house, but the young man's Chester is going to go ahead and be fourth. Again, just want to say thanks for the opportunity to come and to round out your top five. It's a pair that comes down to here in front of me. Design and presence, I think, is both very, very good on this pair. There's one that's just a shot bigger ankled, and there's one that's just more overwhelming in terms of power and still stays square. Again, I guess I didn't think that I'd use three breeds that we don't have at our house to go ahead and move into your top five, but the young lady Spot's going to round out your top five. Congratulations to her.
And we're just going to fifth, is that? All right, our champion, once again, our open breed gilt show for the 2024 Colorado State Fair. Your overall champion gilt was Casely Sanford. Reserve was Kimberly Gray with the dark crossbreds. In third was the Berkshire champion, Stockton Smith. And our fourth place gilt was the Chester, again driven by Stockton Smith. And in fifth place was London Dean with her Spot gilt. Congratulations. We'd like to recognize the sponsors for our Open Breeding Gilt Show awards. The Supreme Champion Gilt was awarded a buckle by Trostel Livestock, and the Reserve Supreme Gilt was awarded a buckle sponsored by Trostel Livestock. The third through fifth overall breeding gilt banners were provided by the Colorado State Fair Authority.
Breed banners were by Consol Farms.
Yes, and I saw that. Yes, and breed champion banners were by Conswall Farms, LLC. And breed reserve champions were provided by Consol Farms, LLC. Thank you to those generous sponsors and donators to the 24 Colorado State Fair Open Gilt Breeding Show.